Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Timely Action Hour podcast. My name is Aiden and I'm your host. Today we are on Season 2, Episode 15. These are my top 10 favorite episodes of Superman the Animated Series. I hope that you're all doing very well today. I'm doing well myself, and I wanted to talk about this because it's one of my favorite TV shows ever, and it's one of my favorite adaptations of the Superman mythos ever. So, and a while ago, I did an episode on this show talking about some of my favorite episodes of Iron Man, the animated series. So I thought, why not talk about Superman, who I actually think is a much better hero? Anyway, so this is in no particular order. These are just episodes that I wrote down that I remember loving. And I did rewatch the show last year, early last year, so it's somewhat fresh in my memory, but let me know what you guys think is your favorite episode of this show if you have seen it. So, starting off, we have The Late Mr. Kent. Now, The Late Mr. Kent is a phenomenal episode that centers around Clark Kent having to deal with his dual identity because he is investigating this story, and it turns, spoiler alert, a corrupt police officer tries to murder him. But since he's Superman, he's invulnerable. But since he's Superman, he has to deal with having his secret identity exposed if he reveals himself. So the whole thing is about Clark being an investigative journalist, showing that he is great at his job, and the psychological aspect of his character and how he has to deal with being both Superman and Clark Kent. And it's just a well written, well acted, well animated, well scored, overall top tier episode, in my personal opinion. Now, this is one of my all time favorites. This is World's Finest. Now, World's Finest is a three-part episode in the second season that has Superman's first meeting with Batman. And this is where the DC animated universe really began because it crossed over season 2 of Superman the Animated Series and season 4 of Batman the Animated Series, connecting those two shows together. Now, before, there had been a couple of references to Batman in the Superman show, but here we actually see him meeting and teaming up with Batman to stop Lex Luthor and the Joker from their nefarious deeds. And it's one of my favorite episodes. I'm pretty sure that this was the first episode I ever saw of the show as a child, and it's still one of my favorites to this day. Then we have the three-part series premiere, The Last Son of Krypton. Now, this is just a retelling of Superman's origin, but I love it. It's a great story. And moving on, we have Mixia-Spitalated. This is the introduction of the classic Superman villain, Mr. Mixia-Spitlick, played by the late, great Gilbert Godfrey. And he brought such comedic talent and a bit of dramatic weight to the character, so I always enjoyed his performance. And this is a show. This episode is about Mr. Mixie like seeing Superman and thinking I can mess with him, and Superman's like, oh, jeez, and every 3 months he comes back, and Superman tricks him to going back home to the fifth dimension, and it's just amazing. Then we have the two-part episode Little Girl Lost, which is the introduction of Supergirl, and this has Superman finding a weak signal out in space, distress signal, and he goes to it and he finds Supergirl, and he brings her back to Earth and adopts her as his cousin, and she stays with Ma and Pa Kent, and then she fights some bad guys and saves Jimmy Olsen, and that starts their romance. And then we have the episode The Main Man, which is a two-parter, which introduced the villain Lobo, and it's just a great episode. Brad Garrett, whom some of you may remember as the brother on Everybody Loves Raymond. He plays Lobo in this show, and he is great. He really brought that character to life, and the writing by Paul Dini was top notch as always. And so Lobo goes to hunt down Superman because someone put a bounty on his head. Then he brings him to the guy. Then they both get captured by him, and then they have to work together to escape, and it's pretty cool. Then we have Superman's Pal, which is an episode about Jimmy Olsen accidentally revealing to the press that he and Superman are good friends, and that gives him a lot of attention from girls and from brand managers and all sorts of people wanting to cash in on being associated with Superman's best friend and the benefits that that might bring them. And eventually he has to fend off Metallo, who wants to capture him to lure Superman to get revenge on Superman for defeating him. Great episode. And at the end, Superman gives Jimmy the signal watch that he gave him in the comics. So there's a button that Jimmy presses on the wristwatch, and it emits a frequency that only Superman or Supergirl could hear, and then Superman can come and help Jimmy if he needs it. And then we have Apocalypse Now, which is an episode about Darkseid invading the Earth. And Darkseid is, aside from Lex Luthor, is the big bad of this show, and he was expertly played by Michael Ironside, and he is just a phenomenal actor, and the writers and the animators did a great job bringing him to life. And in this episode, he invades the Earth, and Superman has to stop him with the help of the new gods like Orion. And unfortunately, Superman's friend Dan Turpin, who's a police officer, is killed by Darkseid in the invasion. And Superman is obviously distraught, and he swears vengeance on Darkseid for this transgression, which is followed up in the series finale, where he and Darkseid duke it out once again, and he's like, I'm gonna defeat you because it's the right thing to do, but I'm also doing this to avenge my friend Dan. And he's like, oh, I didn't know he was your friend. I just killed him because I'm Darkseid. I'm evil. And Superman's like, ah! Anyway, great episode. And then we have the episode Fun and Games, and this is the introduction of the Toyman, who's a classic Superman villain. And this episode really revitalized the Toyman, because before he was just a zany, goofy villain who would use toy-themed weapons to pull bank jobs and, rob millionaires and that sort of thing. And Superman would always catch him, and he'd send him to prison, and that would be that. And then he breaks out again, and they do the same thing over and over. But then, in this episode, they decided, yeah, let's do that, but also let's give the Toyman a tragic backstory where he was the son of this guy who owned a toy factory, and his dad got involved with some gangsters, and then those gangsters killed his dad, and so now he's going after the mob boss for revenge, and Superman gets in the way, and that's why their rivalry starts. And it's just a really good episode, and Bud Cort plays the Toyman in that, and he is both menacing and sympathetic and whimsical all at the same time. He is such a good actor, and he really, really brought the Toyman to life with his performance. And again, I keep on saying this, but the writing, the animation, the music, everything about the DCAU shows were perfect, and I just absolutely adore them. And finally, we have the episode Nighttime, which is another team-up between Superman and Batman, although this is more of a team-up between Superman and Robin, because Bruce Wayne goes missing, and Tim Drake, the technically now retconned third Robin in this timeline. Let's not get into that. That's an episode for another time. But Tim Drake and Superman team up to find Bruce Wayne, and they end up fighting a lot of Batman's villains. Now the twist is that Superman has to disguise himself as Batman to calm down the city because people think, oh, Batman's missing. Anarchy. Let's go do whatever the heck we want. So we have villains going all over the place, causing havoc, and Commissioner Gordon's like, oh my gosh, where the heck is Batman? And then so Superman dresses up as Batman and is like, don't worry, Commissioner, I'm here. It's all fine. How are you? All right, Robin, let's go beat up the Riddler. And that's what they do. And it's just a great episode. I really, really enjoy it. And yeah, those are my 10 favorite episodes of Superman the Animated Series. Once again, that's in no particular order, but those are the 10 that I love the most. And yeah, so let me know what your favorite episodes of this show are. And thank you so much for listening to the National Timely Action Hour podcast. Once again, my name is Aiden. Now, short disclaimer, I use the website sounder.fm to host my podcast, and I recently received an email from them saying that at the end of this month, January 2023, that there's going to be some changes, so I might have to move the show to a different website to host it, but I'll still do my best to get episodes out for you without too much hiccup. I just thought I should let you know. So thank you so much for listening. I sincerely hope that you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.